Welcome to the February 9th edition of the PFF Forecast. This is the last pre-Super Bowl forecast, and it's going to be a special one. We've got injury analysis coming online with Dr. Stephen Pomeranz, who's worked with the Bengals for 38 years, who's going to drop some knowledge on Hurts and Mahomes. And then we have our normal group. We've got Seth, Galina, got Judah Fortgang to drop some SGP knowledge, and we'll close it out with our last locks of the week with Arjun, Menon. We might have some locks for the draft as well. So, it's not totally over, but last live football game locks of the week. It's going to be a great show. Let's rock. It's Super Bowl weekend, and that means that we're taking things up a notch. And so instead of just Brad and I pontificating about injuries, we thought we'd bring in an actual expert here. So Dr. Stephen Pomeranz, who's the director of imaging at Naples Community Hospital Network in Naples, Florida, also the CEO of ProScan Imaging, and also somewhat relevant, has been working with the Bengals for 38 years and with a bunch of other professional sports teams. And has an incredible wealth of knowledge on sports injuries, is joining us today so he can speak some truth about two quarterbacks who are dealing with injuries. Doctor, thanks for hanging out with us. How you doing?
It's a pleasure, George. I guess I'm a professional medical pontificator, if you will.
Yeah, so as I understand it, you were kind of explaining this to us. You have obviously seen a lot of different injuries. And so when the Bengals, for example, are trying to figure out what exactly is happening, they'll bring you in to sort of say, okay, this is exactly what you're seeing. Let me clarify some things for you. Is that right?
Well, I do the reading for them. And so I'm usually the first person in to see the study. I have a couple of other partners that work with me, and occasionally they will be the first ones to see the study. They're a little bit younger than I am, but I am usually the first person on the ground that gets the exam, and they'll send it to me wherever I am. I could be in Italy, I could be in Cincinnati, I could be in Naples, Florida.
You just mentioned three places that are all very similar. So glad we've gotten our geography lesson here covered. Awesome. Let's dive in. We're obviously going to talk about the two quarterbacks because everyone else is basically healthy or has been ruled out. Let's start with Jalen Hurts and just kind of take us through how you understand the injury and what we need to know about what he's dealing with.
Sure. So, a basic anatomy lesson, and please, for the audience and the bettors, don't turn this off. But if you feel up along your collarbone, there is a bone, the collarbone, also known as the clavicle, and that goes out to the side and articulates or connects with your shoulder. And out there is where what's known as an AC joint separation or a shoulder separation occurs. And I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And they have different grades, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and they even have more complex grades than that. The higher the grade, the more serious the injury. And, lower grade injuries are pretty functional, and they're certainly not life-threatening, but they are rather annoying, and they can persist throughout a season. They respond very well to being injected with steroids and with anesthetic and with other types of medications. And so that bone connects with your shoulder bone, your scapular bone. Now, if you follow your hand across your shoulder and come back the other way towards the middle of your chest, that bone connects with, or a fancy way of saying it, articulates with the sternum. Now, that is a much rarer problem to have. And it also requires a lot more force because there are some really strong ligaments here that connect that clavicle bone to your sternum. And if you injure that bone, while it's a lot more rare, a lot less common, it can be a very serious injury. It can be a protracted injury. And in fact, I haven't told you this, gentlemen, but it can be life-threatening. And how is it life-threatening? Because that gets people's attention. Well, if the clavicle goes backwards into your chest, because it can dislocate up, it can dislocate down, It can dislocate forward, which is where it usually goes. But if it goes back, what's hanging out behind there? The major blood vessels of your body that come out of your heart.
Yeah. Wow.
So if it is one of those puppies, you're in trouble.
So I think that was the more complicated one that we definitely need to have in for. Still want to know as much as possible about Patrick Mahomes as well with the high ankle sprain. What did you see there watching that video, and how is that going to limit him in this game?
Sure. So I think functionally, Jalen Hurts is going to be less functionally impaired than Patrick Mahomes. And the reason is that you can protect the shoulder. You're still going to have to throw with it, but he's already demonstrated that he can throw. He may have a few more yards off his ball, a few less MPGs or miles per hour, MPHs off his ball, but he's going to be able to throw, and he's certainly going to be able to run at full speed. He just has to avoid, that fall or that hit directly to the shoulder. So you can protect it. You cannot protect your leg when you're playing in a game like this. And I think we're only 3 weeks out from the high ankle sprain. And let me explain to you what a high ankle sprain is. It's just as it sounds. You've got the ankle, and then immediately above the ankle, there are 3 ligaments that keep the tibia, which is a big, thick bone, and the fibula, which is a little bone, together. Now, if you tear these ligaments, there's one in the front, one in the middle, and one in the back. If you tear, say, 2 or 3 of them, these 2 bones are going to start to come apart. And if they come apart, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that is not good. Because when they come apart, the other bones will rise up into that space. And you're also not going to have a lot of functionality. So the goal is to keep them together. One way to keep them together is to tape that leg really, really tight, but not too tight, tight enough so that they don't come apart from that weakness. It's a very hard injury to deal with. And I think I shared with you in our casual discussion, with the injury that he has, moving to the left and throwing to the right is going to be a challenge for him. And moving to the left, period, or zigzagging down the field is going to be very challenging for him.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, and I went back and watched all of the film from Mahomes in the conference championship, where it wasn't just a straight drop back, so he was moving, one way or the other. And I mean, it looks painful just watching him try and move to the left. He still completed a couple of passes, actually pretty remarkably, when he did roll out to the left, but was limping pretty miserably afterwards. And was facing a team in Cincinnati that doesn't quite have the horses that the Eagles do, from a pass rush perspective. So if you're game planning, I guess, Doctor, you'd be sending him left as much as possible. If you can, if you're the Eagles, is that what you'd be doing?
Sure. I'm definitely not a football expert. I don't pretend to be one. I might play one on TV, but, bringing people in to the right and forcing him to roll to the left, would seem like a logical way to deal with him. Now, when I was watching the game, I did notice that even though he did have to move to the right and to the left, when he was throwing, he's such a powerful thrower that he wasn't really using the force of his core and his legs. He was throwing from the upper body, which not that many people can do, but he can do that. He's a remarkable guy. And I also noticed that even though he was running and wiggling a little bit, a lot of his running was more straight ahead than I was used to seeing him do.
So pivot back. One more question on Jalen Hurts. You said that you think Mahomes will be more limited in this game, dealing with more pain probably, or more, it's going to impact him on a play-to-play basis. For Hurts, after our conversation, I went and dug up some Hurts stats. Actually had his second least accurate game per our charting of the season in the last game against the San Francisco 49ers. So do you think there is maybe a loss of touch? It's not about pain or him not being able to do it physically, but maybe engaging the distance he needs to put on the ball or the velocity he needs to throw it? Is there a loss of maybe feel for what you're supposed to do there?
Yeah, no, I think, Brad, that's a great question. And as I mentioned when I opened on this injury, that I thought he'd have a few less yards on his ball, and he would also have less velocity on his ball. So if you have less velocity and you're used to throwing it one way, that affects everything. Your timing, what you've been used to. And he's only really played one game, that way, getting used to that new velocity. And it might not even be something that he clearly notices, but it's going to be there.
Would there be, so think about the ability, Mahomes being a little more impaired. But as you think about the sustainability throughout the game, would you say Hurts more likely to be re-injured, or Mahomes? Are you more worried about like actually getting knocked out of this game?
I think Mahomes is more likely to get knocked out of the game simply because he just can't protect, that leg. And every single play, he's going to be on that leg, on that leg, on that leg. Whereas Hurts, is not necessarily going to be on that shoulder. He's going to be handing it off a bunch. He's going to be throwing shorter passes. Now one catastrophic hit, could end Hurts's game. And when I say catastrophic, I mean if he gets hit just the right way. If someone comes at him and even hits him standing up directly on that throwing shoulder from the outside to the inside, it's going to drive that bone that I showed you right here, the clavicle bone. It's going to drive that into the center of his chest, that sternum, and it's going to disrupt or injure those ligaments further. So, it isn't that clear cut, but I would say it's more likely that Patrick Mahomes, because every play he's on the leg, is going to be at higher risk.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's something that certainly bettors are thinking about, because the advantage the Eagles have, up front, right? Especially on the outside with the two edge rushers against the two tackles there. This is the first off-color joke of the episode, but Sean Payton, if he were the opposing coach, he'd be spending a lot of time helping the players identify exactly where to hit Jalen Hurts in this game. That's for Brad and his Saints. I think that we're trying to think about how this game is impacted. Bigger impact, in your opinion, for the Chiefs with Mahomes or Hurts and the Eagles?
Well, I would say for the Chiefs with Mahomes, for the reasons that I just mentioned. It's the law of averages. He's going to be on that leg every single play. That gentleman is playing at an incredibly high level, and now he's at this level, which is still incredibly high. But, in my opinion, I'm not a football guy, but the Kansas City Chiefs are outmanned a little bit. Their one equalizer is their amazing quarterback. So when you put him down at mortal levels, now you're talking about something that does affect the outcome of the game. And I think Hurts is going to be very functional as long as he doesn't take that one weird strategic hit.
They mentioned in the conference championship, the Chiefs did, that they did not inject Mahomes before the game. First off, I think that we talked about this a little bit before, but that's something that you agree with. Do you think they injected something at halftime? What do you think they do in this game?
Yeah, it would be pure conjecture on my part, and I'm going to take them at their word that they didn't. You don't often really know the facts. But the reason not to inject him are twofold. One, when you inject somebody like that, they lose those pain sensors. They lose the ability to recognize when they're re-injuring or further injuring that leg, which could then lead to those two bones doing that. And so that's one reason not to inject, that you maintain that sensitivity. It's called proprioception. The other reason not to inject is because the injections work better the first time. So if you can get them through the first half and the game is close, now you can inject him at halftime. There's less time left in the game for him to, weather the storm of that injury, and you're going to get a better effect. The first injection gives you a better effect than the second injection.
All righty. Any questions left on your end, Brad, or do you feel prepared to?
This was extremely helpful. Like George said, I think everyone, ourselves included, we're trying to just do guesswork and be, play operation this week. But we appreciate you coming on and sharing some real knowledge with us.
Yeah. Brad, George, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully you got a little scientific lesson that wasn't too boring. And if it was, you'll sleep well tonight.
Well, now I'm just trying not to get hit in the wrong way on my shoulder. That sounded a little scary.
That is absolutely a scary injury.
Yeah, it's no good. Doctor, we thank you, and we'll have to have you on here again, hopefully a little more frequently next year as we get the kind of betting syndicate together. The members of the printing press will definitely appreciate all of your insights. So thank you so much for joining us.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Have a good night.
All right, Seth. This is the second Seth opening because the first one was so good. It is Super Bowl Seth Galina. It's our favorite version of Seth. We are going to obviously break down this game. And as you do every time you come on, you have a pet peeve or a soft spot. So you better come with it, because I've got a lot of Super Bowl pet peeves, and I may have brought mine along. So I hope you're ready to go. Chiefs Eagles, you've had 2 weeks to break it down. I'm sure that you've got like 45 different angles, but if you had to pick one, one particular matchup or one kind of angle in this game, where are you going?
First of all, I'm mad that people aren't going to get to hear your joke attempt for the 9th.
They already heard it though. Don't worry.
All right. Okay. So I think, let's look at both sides of the ball here, and we'll start with Eagles on offense. It's been the same story for weeks and weeks and months and months. This Eagles offensive line just continues to do stuff to defensive lines that you're not really supposed to do at this level. And they did it again to the 49ers. They've been doing it the whole season to just kind of eliminate the interior defensive linemen of other teams. Defensive linemen against the Eagles, and especially 3 tags, 1 tag, 0 tag, the interior guys have just been not good, to say the absolute least, against them. There are only, I looked this up, only 6 players who have recorded a run defense grade above 70.0 this season against the Eagles offensive line. There's just as many who have recorded under a 45.0 grade, and most of these grades are really bad. I mean, like, they held Dexter Lawrence 62.2 run defense grade, Cam Hayward 61.7, Eric Armstead last 2 weeks ago 57.4. The list goes on and on. So now you're going against who is probably the best interior defensive lineman in the league, and maybe potentially defensive player of the year in Chris Jones. But the issue is, even if Chris Jones has a good day, there's another guy next to him who's not going to have a good day. Kalen Saunders, 52.0 run defense grade. Derek Notties, 39.5 run defense grade. That's just not a recipe for success. And I even think, like, Chris Jones, as good as he is, we've seen the Eagles neutralize these type of players. So it seems like it's just a really bad matchup. And I don't know, look, there's a million things you can do. You can start running your run stunts, your run blitzes. You can just put more people in the box and hope that helps. I do wonder how Spags is going to try and play that out, but I think this is kind of quite obviously the biggest mismatch is Eagles interior versus the non-Chris Jones defensive lineman.
Looking at the flip side, what is the biggest mismatch in the other direction that you're seeing?
It's hard to not talk about the Chiefs and not mention Patrick Mahomes, the magic plays. This is a team that I think the Eagles probably have a unit advantage, a matchup advantage in a lot of different areas in this game. But obviously, quarterback goes to the Chiefs. It's probably not even close. The Eagles are not great this season on plays outside of the pocket. Guess who's really good on plays outside of the pocket? By far. And it's every year is the same way. And this year, I think he's like 8 points. He's graded higher by 8 points than Josh Allen, who's number 2. So it's like, this guy just keeps making plays outside the pocket. Can you tackle him? We say this every week. Can you tackle Patrick Mahomes in the pocket? This is a good Eagles defensive line. It's funny. I went back and I watched the 2021 Eagles defense versus the Chiefs offense, and the Chiefs offense had a very good day against them. And you're looking at this Eagles defense and you're like, man, there's not a lot of guys who are still there. First of all, they played cover 2. They don't play cover 2 anymore. And then just like from D-line to linebacker to secondary, corner and safety, there's just not a lot of guys who are still there. They've upgraded at every position. So this defensive line in particular has been so much better than last season. And they can get to Patrick Mahomes. It's just like, can you get him to the ground, which is the story of Patrick Mahomes' career. And no one's been able to do that consistently. you hope you can do it in the biggest game of the year, or else he's going to make plays outside the pocket because that's what he always does. So I think that's the mismatch. And like I said, Eagles, bottom third in the league in success rate on plays outside the pocket by quarterbacks. So I think that is the mismatch that I think the Eagles will have to neutralize.
It's so interesting because we were just talking about the ankle injury for Mahomes, right? And so like one of the things that we learned from the injury analysis was when he goes left, like it's going to be very painful. It's going to be very hard for him to move left. And you watch the game against Cincinnati and you can see it. Like the dude, like it's painful to watch him run left. At the same time, when he does go left, he like completes 2 crazy throws. So, you sit there and you go, well, he should be limited. He should be limited outside the pocket. But even 2 weeks ago, he was making plays against a solid defense. It's not like the Bengals are some joke of a defense, right? So it's interesting how to think about playing that. I'm actually curious on the other side of things, though, because everything would tell me make Jalen Hurts beat you in this game. Now, that's like easy to hear. You're going to hear that on like the Fox broadcast, right? But like how would you actually do that? Do you think the Chiefs have the kind of the manpower to make that happen?
The problem, and this is why the Eagles are in the Super Bowl with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. Look, I know people usually you can go on Twitter and find crazy stuff about Jalen Hurts being better than Patrick Mahomes. That is just not true. He's not that level. This team is so good from top to bottom on this starting lineup, all like 22 players. This is the best roster in the league, and he's benefited from that. So you look in this situation where you say, well, let's make Jalen Hurts beat us. So we're going to load the box. We're going to stop the run as best as we can. And we're going to play one-on-one on the outside. And then it's like, well, okay, but they went and drafted Devonta Smith, who's incredible. And they went and traded for AJ Brown, who's incredible. And that's been their game this year, is these deep ball throws, especially to the outside. Now, 49ers, I don't know if they necessarily did a good job, or, once you start throwing go balls on the outside, sometimes some games you just don't have it. We saw it 2 weeks ago. Chahrouri made some good plays. Lenore made some good plays, something we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Can the Chiefs corners do that same thing? That's how you make Jalen Hurts beat you, is you make him throw like 50-50 balls outside, and again, we called them 50-50 balls. They're not. I mean, these are not high percentage completion throws. It's better when you have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, but they're still not high percentage throws. So can you make him uncomfortable in that way? I think obviously because of what he is like in the pocket, I don't think he's there yet. Still a young quarterback, so I think he has a ways to go to improve his pocket presence. He still likes to bail from clean pockets. Mm-hmm. He looks smooth doing it, but he does bail from clean pockets. So, if you change the coverage late, if you show something pre-snap that you don't play post-snap, I think that can do a good job to holding, keeping the ball in his hand for as long as possible and make him, leave the pocket before he's comfortable. Now, again, it's like one of the reasons they're in the playoffs, because he does have the ability to move around and create plays, with his legs. So there's always that balance. And this is, again, I go back to the same thing. They are stacked top to bottom. It is tough to just take away one thing. You make them left-handed, well, they're really good on their left hand. So it's going to be a tough matchup, I think, for the Chiefs defense. That's like a mid-table defense this year, right? Like this is not it's not a bad defense, but it's certainly not a great defense. So like it's going to be tough.
Real quick, tied into that, if you're Spags, are you bringing heat? Like, are you blitzing a lot, or is that also a risk because of his athletic ability?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking up some stats against the blitz. Hurts, his PFF grade is just okay, but the yards per attempt is really good. And again, this goes back to like, hey, the Eagles, they figure out ways. They'll screen you, bubble screen, running back screen. They'll hit the one-on-ones outside before the blitz gets there. So I'm not quite sure. I know a lot of people are talking about, hey, Spags should bring the blitz. Now, he will bring the blitz because it's Steve Spagnuolo and he's going to do that. But I just don't know if that is the actual answer to getting to Hurts. I think they do a good job. Sirianni does a good job of they're throwing the ball to the outside. So it's like a lot of just one read, get rid of the football, one read, get rid of the football. So we'll see.
The couple other interesting matchups that I wanted to throw your way and get your read on. So you think about the Kansas City defense. You just mentioned they're kind of like a middle of the table team defensively, but they have some good players at corner. Snead is going to play in this game. McDuffie has been solid. Is there a particular area, obviously the defensive line and the run game, but in the passing game, how do you think they will attack? What makes the most kind of sense for how to attack the Chiefs with the passing game?
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to play more zone or more man. I think if they're going to play more man, I think you'll see a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage, underneath the line of scrimmage, using that RPO game that they do really well and get those what we call them slide routes or slice routes underneath the offensive line and just dump them out into the flat while the man coverage defender is chasing. I think against zone, you're going to see a lot of, not saying anything crazy here, but you're going to see a lot of Dallas Goedert in that, those out routes at 10 to 12 yards. And then you're going to get your Devonta Smith comebacks on the outside. If you're going to play more zone, you get into a situation where the cornerback is playing with eyes on the quarterback. Devonta Smith really good at making you lose him on an outside release, and then he gets into your blind spot and he's down on the comeback route. So I think those are the two type of situations you'll see more of if it's zone. And like I said, if it's man, and again, this makes them really difficult to defend because they have a really, really diverse, I would say, zone read RPO game package that they rely on, and that's killed man coverage this year.
And a mobile quarterback too, right? You talk about man coverage and what that allows the quarterback to do if there's no one open. Brad, any other burning questions from you, or is it time to put some money down?
Let's put some money where our collective mouths are.
All right, Seth. You've been money thus far this year. Where are you investing in this game?
I'm going Hurts under 237.5. I mean, I've seen it different places. I think you can get it up to 239.5 passing yards, but I got it at under 237.5 passing yards. He's been under the last 7 of 9 games. I don't necessarily think that means they're going to lose or anything. I think they're going to be able to run the football. I think if you don't hit these 2 or 3 big plays on the outside to Smith or AJ Brown, like we saw a couple of weeks ago, you're going to get an 155-yard passing day from Jalen Hurts. Now, again, they might score 35 points, but like you might get somewhere in the hundreds. So I think under 237 is the way to go here.
Yeah.
Like
so
it.
you mentioned,
Brad, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned how Hurts gotten better throwing outside the numbers, particularly would be helpful against the blitz. Last week, we had him charted 9 throws outside the numbers, 0 were charted as accurate. First time in his entire career, he hasn't had at least 1 throw outside the numbers charted as accurate. So, I think whether it's injury, the Niners, whatever the case may be, but so I do like that one a lot. I'm going back to the well, I mentioned it before, but Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 completions. The more I look at this, the more the injury reports come out for the Chiefs. I like it more and more. Juju Smith-Schuster, a full participant, Kadarius Toney limited, but it sounds like he's, pretty much fine. I just think this is going to be a, feast underneath, quick outs. Don't let him get, Hassan Reddick on his tail. I like the over completions for Patrick Mahomes a lot.
By the way, on FanDuel, you can get 238.5 on Hurts. I like that one a lot. I also like under 21.5 completions. They're the favorite in this game. He has gone under each of the last 3 games, and it hasn't been particularly close in a couple of them. Now they've been winning those games rather handily, but I really, the passing game, if you watch the conference championship, does not give you a lot of confidence there. So might be a little scary. 10.5 rushing attempts for Jalen Hurts, I think, is interesting because there's nothing left here, right? You've got to use Jalen Hurts in this game, And with that advantage up front, it wouldn't surprise me to see them kind of dispel some of the, oh, Jalen Hurts, we're trying to protect him, all this stuff, and give him some run there. The one that I really like, based on kind of what you were talking about, Seth, are some of these rushing props. And I think this is interesting. Miles Sanders is over here at 61.5. And yet you've got a guy like Kenneth Gainwell at 19.5. Gainwell's last 3 games, 48, 112, 35 rushing yards. I think everyone's fallen in love with Miles Sanders because he scored a couple of touchdowns, but I like Kenneth Gainwell in this game. I think they're going to run the crap out of the ball. So that's the one that I'm going to go with, just kind of based on your analysis, Seth. All right, it's pet peeve time.
All right, so it's not, I mean, like the obvious Super Bowl pet peeve is long halftime shows. And for most of us, I know, look, this is a PFF forecast. You can't tell me anyone listen to this. I hope I'm not miscategorizing anyone, but I there's no way anyone listening to this cares about the halftime show. We care about football.
But it's Rihanna?
It's Rihanna, bro. What is wrong with you?
That is the obvious pet peeve. It's going to go like 25 minutes. I'm going to lose interest in the game. And then that's it. And then it's the end of and then that's it. My actual pet peeve is a personal issue that I'm having right now. I was out of town last week. I get back to Montreal, the YMCA that I can see right outside my window. I go back to work out. They've reconfigured the gym.
Ooh.
It's ruining me. It's ruining me.
Like just not knowing where machines are and stuff.
I got no mats. I got no room for activities. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm screwed.
Wow. They just got bored. They were like, we got nothing to do, guys. We're just gonna go rearrange. That's a good pet peeve.
Yeah.
That's
First
a
one,
really
trash.
good pet peeve.
That one I can support you on.
Well, why would you
just
want? What if okay, we go into halftime. It's 21-20. We're scoring points here. We're moving the football. You're having a couple of brewskis. You're having a good time, and then halftime, and then it's like you forget what happened in the first half.
You're not off. You're not far off. If it's a performer I don't care about, then I'm sitting there. I'm the same way. But also, you got to get up, stretch the legs. Get the juices flowing a bit. And then the last thing I'll say, the group chat with the Ys literally said, "Hey, who's bringing what food for the Rihanna concert on Sunday?" So like it's a good old fashioned family fun.
You can also bet on it, Seth. So if you couldn't bet on it, I understand. But you know what I've been doing today? Okay, I've been listening to Rihanna all day. I have Ella stuck in my head because I keep listening to these freaking songs. They put out a trailer, Apple Music did, for the show. And they play Run This Town is the song on the trailer. Okay, I immediately threw that in the Discord. I was talking about, I was like, that's the intro that just makes sense to me. Now, I don't know that Jay-Z is going to come out and sing that part because he's obviously on that. But Seth, this is the kind of thing that it's just a game within a game. Right? It's another opportunity to bet on the Super Bowl.
We work for
I can't believe that you're
Pro Football Focus. Okay, we're football guys. That's it. That's all we are.
I hope the commenters are on your side. They probably will be.
They will be. Yeah. They absolutely will be. They're like, oh, finally, someone stops. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Rihanna.
Probably.
Thank God Seth is here to talk some sense into these losers.
Yeah.
I will say here's my pet peeve on the Super Bowl. It's when you go, like, Super Bowl parties are fun, but the challenge is that if you actually want to watch the Super Bowl, like, it's very hard to find the right medium, right? You want to eat good food, you want to be around people, but then it's also just like impossible. If you do that, it's impossible to watch the game. So my pet peeve is that it's very hard to find like the ideal Super Bowl environment because you have 50 people that show up to watch it for the first football game of the year.
This sounds like a weirdo move, but I got to throw it in there because I've utilized it and it's very effective. Sit behind everyone else, not like in a creepy way, but like if the seating arrangement is set up to where there's some there's rows of seating, right? sit in the back so no one can make eye contact with you, and you just look. But if you're in the front, they're gonna turn, like if you're on the couch next to them, they're gonna turn to you like, "Hey, what do you think about yada yada? Oh, they had a kid. Let me show you a picture of the kid." You're like, "I could care less about this kid." If you're behind them, again, in a non-creepy way, it sounds creepy now that I said that twice. Then you just, you just focus on the TV. That's a little tip for you there.
You need to see a therapist, buddy. Like that's what I got out of that.
That's just scheming 101 right there, baby.
That's incredible. My other pet peeve is the person at the party who the first commercial, everyone like starts talking and goes to get food and they go, "Hey, shut up. It's the commercials." Like that person is even worse than the halftime show people like us.
They haven't been funny in years. Unless it's like Doritos, it's not funny.
Yeah, it really isn't. You know who is funny? Seth. Seth, we appreciate you. This is always a blast. We get to talk about the draft next week, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Have fun with that.
You're coming on to break down the draft. I don't know.
I'm gonna watch one player a week.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about that one player for 30 minutes.
You didn't get the email about the D3 sleepers?
I am the D3 sleeper.
Doesn't like to bet on Rihanna, doesn't like to bet on the draft. What is wrong with this guy? Seth Galina at PFF_Seth. Seth, we appreciate you. Enjoy the Super Bowl, buddy.
Guys.
There's one game left, and that means we have one last shot at glory. And for that, we bring in Judah Fortgang, because the best look, all these people that are out here are like, which side of this game are you going to take? That is so tired. If you're sitting here trying to figure out whether you're going to take -2.5, -1.5, +1.5, +2.5, just stop. Okay. Listen to this segment and you'll be cured. Judah at Throw the Damn Ball on Twitter writes some great content on PFF.com, the PFF app, and attacks things from a different angle, looks at all lines, puts together correlated same game parlays that follow a unique thesis and gives you a chance to get a little more skin in the game. So, Judah, one game left. So we've got to have a lot of different angles from which to attack. Where do you want to start here?
Yeah, it's almost the perfect intro because I want to ask anyone who's betting the Chiefs, are they going to win? And Patrick Mahomes is not going to come close to his passing prop, but I think those go hand in hand. And that's kind of the first angle I'm looking at, which is amongst all of the kind of uncertainty of injuries and whatnot in the NFL, things are simple in terms of the quarterback and the passing games are the most important thing. And the Chiefs clearly have the advantage there. And I want to lean into kind of the relative certainty of Patrick Mahomes. So the bet here is Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to push it to 300 passing yards. You can get Chiefs -2.5 at FN at +360. Also -5.5 would be +500. And basically the thesis is like, there's been so much talk the past 2 weeks about, how good is each team from 2 to 53 at non-quarterbacks. Let's focus on kind of the simple things that we know to be tried and true, which is that passing games really matter in the NFL. And Patrick Mahomes is kind of matchup independent. I don't really care about the Eagles defense being, great. It's not going to slow down Patrick Mahomes. Right. His EPA against top 10 defenses is the exact same as it is against the rest of the league. We know what we're going to get with him. And if the Chiefs are going to win, it's going to flow through Mahomes. And I kind of want to use that as my base to kind of use for future bets, on the rest of the game.
What are you thinking?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brad.
Are there any players on the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes? Obviously Kelsey's Kelsey, but that you also think if they're going to win this game under that thesis, you think maybe they have to step up in this game and fit into an SGP?
No, that's kind of why I prefer the Eagles SGPs. We'll talk about that, but I will say that passing yards right now do not add up to the Chiefs receivers. And I think because books want to have props open now, there's 50 unaccounted for yards, which means someone's going to go flying over, right? I don't know. I have no idea if Kadarius Toney's healthy at all. My instinct to that question is MVS, only because he's the guy who's actually going to play. And I assume he'll get some deep shots there. And it's always attractive when you have a guy or just the alt prices, plus 800 for 80 yards. And that can happen in 2 catches. But there's no and obviously Kelsey is, a threat every time, but the books are already accounting for that. There's no one particularly in the angle of I think it's going to be this receiver, but there's definitely room because the pricing is so off.
One that I, and now this will probably be well priced by the books, but we talked about this a little bit, Judah, with Seth, and actually upcoming in the episode with Arjun. But I am fading Jerick McKinnon getting carries in this game like it's, the plague. And like, I just can't see any way where he's getting 6 carries in this game, particularly if Mahomes, throwing the ball is efficient. So that might be one place that I would look, not trying to sort of account for the yards, but sort of to say, okay, well, he is going to throw for a bunch of yards. And if he does, are there any things kind of around it that will also happen? What do you think about that? And are there any other like just kind of correlated things that are not receivers catching passes?
Yeah, I love that actually. That's kind of one of the parlays I'll drop and I'll write up on site, which is like taking a Mahomes passing over a Chiefs spread and basically like taking the under on rushing yards, whether it's Pacheco, McKinnon, or even like Edwards-Helaire is supposed to come back. Like we have no idea how much work he'll get. But taking kind of the under, the Chiefs have done this before. They did it in the divisional rounds. Like they're not afraid to just continue to throw the ball. Books are going to price in, rushing yards and spreads, as we've talked about so often. And I don't think that's true for the Chiefs.
Yeah. Okay. So that takes care. So what you were saying there is kind of this core piece where it's a Chiefs win. And usually you're taking an alt spread. Are you thinking -5.5 and then over 300 for Mahomes? What's your kind of preferred way to?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take both 2.5 and 5.5 again, because I can see this going so many ways. And the Chiefs also have a tendency to keep these games way too close. Between 3 and 7. I don't think it's such a huge jump in pricing from 360 to 500. And I think kind of keeping it under a field goal limits a bit of the variance there. But I think both work kind of under the same thesis.
Okay, cool. All right. So now let's get into what do you want to do? Do you want to do a live angle, or do you want to save SGPs for the end?
Sure, whatever works.
Okay. Let's talk live a little bit. And I'm curious here, there's only one game, right? Obviously, we talked about betting like the spread and the total right now. It's kind of like, why would you even be doing that? I'm excited for the live betting opportunities. Maybe my favorite betting moment ever is live betting the Patriots in 28-3. So like maybe that's just me, but I think this is a uniquely wonderful game to bet live, because when people are, losing themselves about the commercials, you can be making money. And that's a beautiful thing. So how are you approaching this from a live betting perspective?
Yeah. So there are a couple things. Number one, I think the injuries do make a big difference, which is I want to see, and this kind of blends into the first angle, which is like the Eagles, I think, are going to try basically anything in their playbook to start the game. I want to see if Jalen Hurts' shoulder is healthy. He doesn't look right on those deep throws, especially. That's kind of what I noticed the past couple of weeks. They're going to try to run the ball. And then the Eagles are very adaptable depending on kind of what's working and the matchup. So I'm going to kind of use the first quarter and what's working for them as a base, right? Like we saw in the Niners game, they were attempting to throw deep to start. They missed on a couple throws, and they're like, fine, we're going to completely abandon the pass and just run. So I'm looking to kind of bet how the Eagles come out in the first, 3 or 4 drives is kind of going to set the tone for how they'll attack later on. And I want to see if they're I don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Chiefs if they kind of have the same game plan they did against the Niners of just continuing to run the ball. Then kind of the second angle here is a lot of talk about opponents and like the Eagles' strength. Where I think that really manifests is that like we actually have a very small sample size of Jalen Hurts coming back in games, right? Like he just hasn't really faced good teams when down. The teams he faced when down are like the Commanders and the Colts. He barely squeaked by for the Colts, which is to say that with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're going to be in any game. If they're down, 17-0, we're live betting the Chiefs. We're not counting them out. I don't think we can say the same about the Eagles, which is that even the small sample size we do have, they become an average offense when they're, down in games, when they have a win probability of 35% or less. They're at their best kind of in all other situations where they're number one in EPA, which is if the Chiefs go down early, I'm fine to bet them. I don't think I can say the same about the Eagles. And that's kind of how I'm planning my live bets, let's say, as opposed to reacting to the kind of the injury news.
So quick follow-up on, you've talked about live props before, and you mentioned, Eagles not coming behind. I think I mentioned earlier, but if not, the Eagles have had the most snaps in the NFL this year when leading by over a touchdown by like a decent amount. And the Chiefs are second. in a hypothetical scenario where they are, with the lead again, for either team really, just based on game script, like are there some live player prop angles that you've already kind of circled as potential moves that you would like to look into, based on how the game plays out?
Yeah, I mean, it's more so on the Chiefs side because I don't think the books are going to adjust very well to who's actually playing on the field, and just paying like rap participation is going to matter a lot here. And I think there's kind of like a lot of uncertainty there, and the live books do not have a good way of adjusting to that live. We saw that in the Wild Card game with Rashad White and Leonard Fournette. They're just pricing in the same line, and Rashad White was playing way more than Leonard Fournette. I just want to see who's on the field for the Chiefs. Like, that's a clear angle to bet props. If you see the MVS is the only one getting all the snaps, bet the overs. If you see that like Tony's barely getting any share, like bet the under. He's not healthy. Juju Smith-Schuster especially. On the Eagles side, like they're going to pepper kind of those three guys with targets. And again, because that's Goddard, AJ Brown, and Devonta Smith, to be clear. They don't really throw running backs, which is kind of actually where the Chiefs have been pretty vulnerable in the passing attack. Schematically, I think the Eagles are going to attack those three guys. And if Jalen Hurts has to throw a lot, we know where it's going to go. And again, I'd use kind of the early signal of where they're throwing. That's going to be setting the tone for the rest of the game. And I don't think there'll really be so many post-game second half adjustments. Whatever's working, they're just going to keep rolling with that.
Second half adjustments are to do whatever Rihanna tells you to do at halftime. Those are the adjustments you make. By the way, confirmed that Seth hates Rihanna. So God be with him on Twitter. Okay. SGP builds here. You talked about, tease this a little bit, kind of thinking the Chiefs angle, maybe not the right way to compile a thesis that has more legs to it. So take us through it. What's your favorite SGP build?
Ooh, and I think the favorite one, I'll give two. My favorite one, I think, is the Mahomes. I've got it right now at 325, Chiefs minus 6.5, and Pacheco under 34.5. You can get that 45 to 1 on DraftKings. I think that's my favorite one, only because there really doesn't need a lot to go right here, which is just like the Chiefs go out to a lead through Mahomes and just stick with it. And like, we have no idea who's going to get the run on the Chiefs, and whether, even if they do get the run, whether they're going to be successful against the pretty stout front that the Eagles have had when Jordan Davis is healthy. Because you have to get a little crazy, obviously. I like taking a Eagles passing attack, just betting on the talent of AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, which is right now, I think, we've even seen movement from Jalen Hurts' passing prop opening at like 247. Last I checked, it was down to like 238. And I think that's kind of the mean projection, and I think that's probably fine. But same game parlays, we're looking for tails. And kind of the lower the passing prop is, the more upside you can get on expanding kind of those Hurts passing props. And again, as we talked about, even in the conference championship, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith hit together. If you get them at 100 yards each, and I like here Jalen Hurts rushing over, which is not correlated with the Bucs as much as this under, but I think it points to the game script that needs to happen here, which is that the Eagles completely abandon the run, and they're just going to drop back a ton, which means more opportunities for Jalen Hurts to scramble. The Chiefs allow the 5th most scrambles in the NFL. And then for them to have success with those two receivers. And it's basically telling a game script of Eagles abandon the run, they win. We've seen this against the Bears. They did this. Again, they're very, matchup opponent. And if it's working, they're going to run with it. And basically just betting on Hurts dropping back a bunch, throwing to those two guys, getting some rushing yards along the way, and the Eagles to win. And you can get that at 780 to 1. You can a little bit of a tease there to make sure you find the exact parlay on pff.com and the PFF app.
So that's really interesting, because one of the big matchup advantages that the Eagles have always had, no matter who they're playing, is their run blocking. They're phenomenal, their offensive line. And we're talking about this with Seth, is you have 2 weeks to prepare. You sit there, you watch the film of these guys just mauling people. And one of the things that I brought up is if I'm Steve Spagnuolo and I watch the last game, look, if Jalen Hurts is going to beat me, Jalen Hurts is going to beat me. But I'm not letting Jason Kelce teabag me up and down the field, okay? That ain't happening, okay? If Jalen Hurts wants to air it out 50 yards down the field and he's going to connect with A.J. Brown, so be it. But I'm not going to get gashed for 15 yards a pop and have my team get mauled. And, that would be, I think that feels contrarian, that the Eagles would win through the air. But it shouldn't, just because that might be not the way they've won throughout the year, shouldn't mean that the Chiefs wouldn't come out and try and force them to do the opposite. So I think it's an interesting angle where you are going to find a difference probably in the way it's priced because of how people have seen the Eagles win versus how the Chiefs are thinking about it, which is, well, no, we're going to make them win that way. So like, you get that kind of overlap there. I like that angle a lot.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
I'm excited. This is going to be fun. I was a little, you overanalyze the game over the course of 2 weeks. This was the extra bit of juice I needed. That little bit of, okay, now I have some high odds props. This is exactly why people bet parlays, because it gets you excited. Brad, I have an illness. Okay.
It's true. It's, like you said, especially for this game. I mean, you're betting spread or total. Like, what are you doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I say that about every game. But
I was gonna say
that's my hot take.
Yeah.
That is true. Make sure you go hop into the PFF Printing Press Discord. That they are very good about as soon as Judah's pieces drop on PFF.com. They are posted in there, so you will never miss them. They are big fans of Judah Fortgang in there. And of course, we can talk about betting things live as they happen as well. Judah, always a pleasure. Enjoy the game, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is the last locks of the week. I guess we could do the draft, but at least for real football for a little while. So we brought in noted F1 McLaren fan, Arjun Menon. What are you truly a McLaren fan? What's the story behind this hat?
No, I just support your bets on whoever you bet on, George.
Okay.
Because I wake up Sunday morning, Saturday morning, seeing your tweets about it, and I'm like, I'm rooting for whatever bets George has going. So I don't really follow F1 like that.
I did bet Lando Norris to finish P6 or better a lot this year. It did not cash, so maybe we'll have to refine that. Let's talk about things that we are a little bit better at betting on, and that is the Super Bowl. We've in our past 3 episodes have talked about how to bet the Super Bowl in various ways. We went deep into the national anthem on the last episodes. If you're looking for that, go check that out. Here we're going to just go through our favorite bets. They can include anything. We're probably not going to talk a lot about the spread and the total because, quite frankly, if you're looking to bet the spread and the total in the Super Bowl, you're missing out. Like, the value is on the props. There are so many props that you don't normally see. And because there's so much time before the game, there's a real opportunity to kind of break these down. So we mentioned some on the previous podcast. If you haven't listened to those, recommend that you go check them out. Some of those lines have already moved rather considerably, but this will kind of be a summary and anything else that we've dug up. And as usual, we'll pick our favorites at the end. I'm sure there will be a few. Arjun, why don't you lead us off with your first lock?
Yeah, so this is one I talked about last week, and I still really like it. It's Kenneth Gainwell, longest rush over 8.5 yards. He's gone over this in 6 of his last 7 games. He's been getting more touches. Now, part of that is because the Eagles have been playing with a pretty significant lead. And, I am a little bit bullish on the Eagles in this game, so I do think they'll have control of the game, which should lead to more carries for him. Again, the Eagles have the highest rate of perfectly blocked runs of any team in the league. Jalen Hurts obviously helps with that. And I think because of his shoulder injury, they could go with more of a run heavy approach than we've seen in weeks past, despite playing the Chiefs. And I think Gainwell will be a beneficiary of, kind of the read option, zone read stuff that they call. And he should be able to get one rush for at least 9 yards or more.
Yep. So obviously you said, we've obviously touched on a bunch of different angles, so I'm going to try to bring in a couple new ones, but I've been really into a lot of these head-to-head props. There are some kind of game script elements to a lot of them, but another one I like beyond the quarterback ones, which have moved since Sunday, Isaiah Pacheco plus 14.5 rushing yards against Miles Sanders. Now, look, of course, the game script is a huge part of this, but also, I mean, we're seeing in the recent weeks, like you mentioned Kenneth Gainwell getting 29 touches over the last 2 weeks. There's more of a committee in Philly and less of a committee in Kansas City right now over the last couple of weeks. So, and also the funny thing is if you look at DraftKings, it's plus 14.5, and then Miles Sanders is 59.5 over under, and Pacheco's 48.5 over under. So I'm not sure why they have an 11-yard spread in the actual props, and then it's 14.5, on the head-to-head. But nevertheless, I like Isaiah Pacheco plus 14.5 rushing yards against Miles Sanders.
I like that a lot. I like many different ways to fade Miles Sanders in this game. I don't know how I turned into a fade Miles Sanders truther, but I'll continue this this thread here and put my Gainwell thoughts out there. I like over 12.5 receiving yards and rushing yards and over 19.5 receiving yards. I think both of those make a ton of sense. As I pointed out when Seth was on here, he's gone over and considerably over in his last 3 games and has done so against, pretty similar types of defenses. You can check that out in the PFF app, by the way, some new stuff that just dropped before the Super Bowl. Timo Risque put together some scheme similarity stuff that you can actually see now in the app. So you can see, types of defenses they played, which ones are similar. But this also gets to the biggest mismatch in this game, which Seth talked about as well. And that's the Eagles run blocking versus the Kansas City D-line. The Eagles have the highest graded run blocking unit in the NFL. Chiefs are 18th, just 62.4 run defense grade. And, you can just see it that the Eagles are going to come out and run the ball a ton. So all Gainwell. Someone, by the way, put a pretty sizable bet on Gainwell MVP. I don't know if they remember the printing press, but I have yet to see anyone publish my Minshew MVP bet. Just saying. Okay. Arjun, you're up next.
Yeah. So another one I've liked a little bit is Juju Smith-Schuster over 3.5 receptions. Against zone coverage, he has a 2.12 yards per route run. You can find this on PFF premium stats with a PFF subscription. He also has a 20.5 target share against zone coverage, which is 3rd behind Kelsey and Tony. And you don't have McCole Hardman, so that obviously takes away a target from the Chiefs offense. And Juju is really that 2nd or 3rd guy in that offense behind Tony. I think I'm projecting him to be a little bit better than Tony, just because if they're going to be, again, in my world, playing from behind against the Eagles, they're going to want to push the ball further down the field. And this idea is kind of shown here with Juju's ADOT against zone is 7.5. Tony's ADOT is 3.5 against zone. So if they're going to be playing from behind, they need to throw the ball down the field. Juju is that guy. 33 first down catches of his 33 first down catches of his 52 total receptions have come against zone. So I do like Juju to go over here. And again, this is kind of basing in how I think the game is going to flow, with the Eagles kind of jumping out to an early lead.
Yeah, so this is going to be a very long odds selection for a quote unquote lock of the week. But it's my favorite of all the touchdown bets. And that is Kadarius Toney first touchdown score in the game.
Whoa.
Plus 18. Oh yeah. So first and foremost, if you're going to bet Toney on a touchdown, because he probably, is going to play a quarter and get hurt, you might as well go first touchdown. There's no reason to just go anytime touchdown. So that is part of it. But also, no, we talked about it. When he's on the field, he's getting targeted. And I think in a scripted play scenario, if they get into the red zone and are looking to pass still, him doing something creative at the line, running jet motion, running a, orbit motion, doing some weird thing, even getting a pop pass or whatever you want to call it. That's like what you expect from them, at least with Andy Reid in the beginning of the game. Get him involved, get him going. So I just like the value there. It's one of the longer odd first time touchdown props out there.
I like that. I have one on my list that is long odds as well. So let me throw it out here. This is for my dear friend, the doctor. Okay, Dr. Eric Eager. This is the Eric Eager Super Bowl Chiefs bet. Okay, this is the Kansas Simpy Chief Memorial bet, and this is Frank Clark to record the most sacks at 7-1 in this game. And here is the reasoning. The first is nothing will make this win for the Chiefs more bittersweet than if Frank Clark is one of the reasons that that Chiefs fans believe they win this game. I am here for that narrative. Okay. The second is that what does Jalen Hurts do? He holds onto the ball, right? He's mobile. He's going to be able to run around. The interior offensive line of the Eagles is really, really good. So this is going to be as good of a time to stymie Chris Jones. And then here's the flip side of it. Everyone thinks that the Eagles, and Brad, you talked about this on the last episode, that the Eagles are going to be the team that gets the most sacks. Sacks are a quarterback stat. Patrick Mahomes does not get sacked. He also knows that he cannot afford to take a bunch of hits in this game. So I like fading that narrative. I still think that Hassan Reddick MVP play is a good one, but not necessarily because he's going to have 3 sacks, because he can force that big fumble or that kind of crucial piece. So Frank Clark with like 2 cleanup sacks, 3.5 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds after the snap, just makes too much sense. That persistence from playoff Frank. So that's my long shot bet.
Yeah, no, I love that. Playoff Frank is truly a menace, probably a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL.
In history. He's Reggie White in the playoffs, okay?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going away from player props. This is a kind of a head-to-head team prop I like. You can find it on some of the offshores. It's who is the first team to be penalized for pass interference, and I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is both defense and offensive pass interference. Did a little bit digging. So the Chiefs have committed 19 instances of being penalized for offensive or defensive pass interference in the league. First by about like 4 or 5 penalties, this including the playoffs. The Eagles have only committed OPI or DPI 7 times. So we're talking about 1 per game to less than half a game. And so basically you're betting on who's going to commit a pass interference. And I really think the Chiefs would be the team to do it of the 2. Again, like I talked about, the Eagles are playing a ton of zone, and because they're going to be in zone, they're not going to really be in a position to commit OPI or DPI. Also think about how the Chiefs and Eagles operate. The Chiefs offense is more of a horizontal offense, get the receivers the ball in space. It's a lot of curls. It's a lot of crossers. The Eagles offense is more vertical. I think we've talked about the AJ Brown go routes. You're going to throw it up and he's either going to catch it or, it's going to be tough for Joshua Williams or Jalen Watson to commit or to be in perfect coverage. You also have rookie corners out there for the Chiefs on both sides of the field, depending on if L'Jarius Sneed plays. And so, yeah, I think you're basically betting on who's going to commit a DPI. And I think the Eagles are very, very well coached. That kind of bears out in the data. And one last point that I don't really put much stock into, but I've seen on Twitter, the Carl Cheffers against the Chiefs narrative, which apparently he's the ref that hates the Chiefs. So, he would be probably more prone to call a DPI or OPI against the Chiefs, but I think a lot of the data kind of backs up that the Chiefs have done this more often throughout the season, and I think they would be the team to do it first in this game.
Can't beat some good Carl Cheffers analysis. So getting even more wacky than anything we've discussed before, but I love this play as well. There is sport on DraftKings. You can do cross sport specials, so you can bet on Super Bowl props versus NBA, NHL, and one I like is against actually the Premiership, and that is Kenneth Gainwell receptions -115 versus Man United total goals scored on February 12th against Leeds. So they just had a 2-2 draw yesterday. Leeds sacked their manager recently. I think the boys are fired up to batten down the hatches, keep Man United in check a little bit. And I think you get 3 catches from Kenneth Gainwell, and you're feeling good rolling into that Man United matchup.
This has turned into a Kenneth Gainwell podcast. We are going to be levered up on Kenneth Gainwell. By the way, I still love my Gainwell versus McKinnon head-to-head. Think that is a ridiculous value. Okay, more running backs coming your guys' way. So Jerick McKinnon under 5.5 carries. He's gone under in 4 of his last 5. Pacheco is, aside from Travis Kelce, the guy with the most shoots on that team. Played a career high snaps, played a career high receiving snaps as well, and career high in targets, 6 targets last week. So everything stands to reason that they're going to play Pacheco a bunch. I don't think anyone has watched a McKinnon run and gone, wow, man, glad they gave that to McKinnon instead of Pacheco. Like that doesn't happen. So in a game like this, where again, I think your point was really good earlier, Brad, like the committee is on the Eagles. It is not with the Chiefs. Pacheco is the guy there. 5.5 carries is a lot. 6 carries for Jerick McKinnon in this game, playing from behind. What if Andy Reid has 6 run plays for Jerick McKinnon? People are going to be furious, and one of the people who's going to be furious is Patrick Mahomes. So I just do not see that one happening. Under 5.5 carries for Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Again, I kind of, it plays into what I think is going to happen also with just the Eagles kind of getting out to a lead and Chiefs playing from behind. I don't really have any other big ones. I sent one in our Slack chat. There's some funny ones out there, like, well, what's going to happen to the
Yes.
price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, if that goes up or down during the game. I mean, I'm like curious, like, since you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have, like, how do you like some of these offshores even like price some of these props? Is it just by vibes, or like you think they actually like have like a model or something that is pricing these out?
This is major vibes. I mean, I'm guessing the thought is last year there were like 3 commercials for crypto. This year there are
Mm-hmm.
0, because any budget that can afford a $7 million for 30-second commercial is now tied up in SBF's defense fund. So yeah, I think it's vibes, and I do love these. I'm glad you brought it up.
So knowing that there probably won't be any commercials, because I want to say, right, there was a Coinbase commercial that was pretty viral. There was like probably 3 FTX commercials with like Tom Brady and Steph Curry and Shaq and all those well-known financial experts. So I wonder, like, what's the right play here? Is it to fade, or is it going to
Here's
to
an
take?
interesting thought, though. Now we're getting really in the weeds. So the thing you posted, Arjun, has just Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple. Ripple, I don't know if it still is, because I know it's under like FCC investigation. But in other countries, there were, I want to say South Korea at a certain point was tying Ripple into their like banking system. I could be making it up. I think that's the country. It's a country in the Asias. I'm trying to think if you were maybe betting in Macau, or if they're fielding, a lot of Super Bowl crazy bets in books. Maybe Ripple does well. Now I'm getting really in the weeds, but that's the only initial thought I have as I look at this.
Yeah, that's enough Ripple content for this podcast. I have a few more here. Brad, what about you? Do you have any more?
I'm tapped out.
Okay. Well, look, someone's got to carry the weight here. I have 2 more. Our good friend, member of the printing press, honorary member of the printing press, Dallas Goedert. Okay. Total right now at 45.5. Couple of reasons why I like this. In the last game against the Niners, only had 23 yards. But if you remember that game, he was targeted pretty frequently, especially, in the kind of early part of the game. He was a big part of that game plan, despite the fact that the Niners are amazing against tight ends. And he had no yak. Every time he caught the ball, he was down immediately. But he was clearly a part of the game plan against a really good defense at stopping tight ends. The Chiefs are very much middle of the pack here, 16th in PFF grade covering tight ends. Dallas Goedert, 4th highest graded tight end. In a game where everyone's going to be talking about Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert's been a really significant part of this team's game plan, the Eagles, for really the last 3 games in particular. So I like that. I also like some alts. So if you take like Goddard over 60 or 70, you can get like, plus 150, plus 200. The Chiefs also miserable. I think you mentioned this, Arjun, in the last podcast, miserable covering the middle of the field, 31st in EPA, I want to say allowed over the middle of the football field, where you'd expect Dallas Goedert to roam. And the other thing that I like about this is you look at the strength of the Chiefs. They do have some good corners. Snead is going to play in this game. McDuffie's been good. Watson hasn't been great from PFF grade perspective, but he's like, an athletic kid who, maybe he, mans up in this game and shows some of his talent. So I really like Goedert in this game. And then I'll go to Kelce because I found this one that I liked. I'm curious your guys' take on this. It's Kelce 25 plus yards in each half. It's minus 145. So I looked this up. He's had like 3 first halves all season where he has not had 25 yards. He's gone sailing over in just about every first half. The second halves have been a little more kind of curious. But if you start peeling it back and looking at games where they kind of need him to be a part of the game, that becomes a much more clear situation where they are going to give him the ball. I can't imagine an Eagles team playing zone in this game as a favorite, and Travis Kelce not getting like 15, 20 targets in this game. So maybe you don't think he goes over, 80 yards total, but 25 in each half, I really like. So those are the two additional ones that I have to your guys.
I lied. I
Thoughts
do
on
have
those?
one more. I like both of those. The Kelce one I definitely like because I think you're going to get the scripted, and then if they're down, it's obviously going to hit in the second half. So I like that one a lot. I do have one more. It's tying into Seth's from earlier with, first of all, the under 238.5 is very intriguing for Jalen Hurts. And then also, like I mentioned, I mean, Hurts, I think there is the injury is more serious than maybe people realize. Obviously, it's why we had the doctor on. So under 4.5 receptions this season, it's gone 13 times. He's gone under 4.5 out of 19 games. Actually hit it once on the over with Gardner Minshew against the Dallas Cowboys as well. Also, if you look at him against a team that play heavy man coverage, he is a man beater that kind of brought him in because he doesn't get bumped off routes. He's a physical player, but I think they're just going to account for him a ton, and he's not going to get hit on those outside the number, down the field balls. I do like that play as well.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. Brad, I really like your Mahomes. Was it completions or attempts? One of the two.
Completions 25.5. Yep.
Yeah, I like that one. I think we should add that one in here. I don't know that we need to even decide on these. I feel like we just, it's the Super Bowl. Everyone's going to bet everything. So let's, what do we have?
It's 38 locks of the week.
30. I mean, that's the perfect ending to the season, because anyone, by the way, that's new to the printing press or the forecast, this is calling it the locks of the week was a satire on, kind of common betting terminology out there where people go, it's our lock, our stone cold lock. SVP has a funny one where he does this like stone cold lock of the week of the century or something like that. So it's only fitting to have like 50 locks to close out the year. All right. I think that's good. By the way, if you have not already joined the PFF Printing Press Discord, a good time to do so. There'll be a lot of live betting opportunities here. Obviously, we have Judah Fortgang on to talk about some of those strategies, so you'll want to be in there. And then, Arjun, you always drop some anytime touchdown and first touchdown knowledge in the Discord with some data and analysis there. So if you want that, go check out the Discord. Their link to join is in the description, and you can find it on our Twitter accounts as well. Arjun, best of luck. Are you what does a college kid do for the Super Bowl? Are you guys going to a bar, or what's the game plan?
Yeah, I mean, me and Tage are gonna go to one of our friends' house who's throwing, so should be a lot of fun. Last year we watched it together, obviously, because Stafford and all that, but yeah, this year we'll be more relaxed, just rooting for the bets, and don't really have a side on the game.
Okay, Brad, what's your game plan?
Yeah, going to a buddy's place with about a dozen of us, so should be a good time.
Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing yet, so I'll probably just end up at home. But I'll have the whole printing press with me, so it'll be all good. Fellas, it's been a hell of a season. Good luck, and members of the printing press and everybody out there, we love you. Peace.